And these are countries which we have very strong links with within the faculty. So these have been chosen because we've got staff that do research projects in these countries, and we have other links so that it's part of our portfolio as a whole within the faculty. So we are looking to extend this, but at the moment we're not. So if you do have a burning desire to go to other countries, we're not able to offer them through FHS Abroad. So just bear that in mind. So how does the unit of study look? So it's quite an unusual unit of study in that it works out of sync with every other. But it hopefully looks quite straightforward. Start pretty much halfway through the semester. Now in terms of enrolment, you have to be enrolled in one semester. So we encourage with us. Enrolled in the semester before you travel. Afterwards, it just means. So week 8. So when you travel, it can be during the June-July break. Wash it in with all the other things that you have to do. Or you can travel right after exams in November over December. It starts in March. So when you come back, we have a feedback session. And then by the end of week 4, you hand in most of your assessments. You do a presentation. And in week 9, basically everything. Got all your marks finalised. So you can see that it kind of fits quite nicely in the middle of probably all the other units that you have to do. And it's because we've got people from not only all the different disciplines here, but also people. It's very difficult for us. So in terms of actual face-to-face time and teaching hours, we only have 2 day-long workshops, pre-departure workshops, which is pretty intense. Friday, but that's okay. That runs for an entire day, and we run through all the preparation that you need for your trip. Then when you get back, we've got another pretty much full day, which is a feedback session, which is an important process of come back. Exercises. So, as well as these, there is preparation that you have to do with whoever you travel with. We'll mention that later on. So for the assessments, what you have to do, start to research, look at your destination, organisation that you're going to be with. We want you to do a little bit of research into types of healthcare and also other issues. So your environment's going to be very different to health. What you see within it. So we want you to when you go, we want you to keep a journal. So people do this in different ways, but essentially documenting your day-to-day experience, the things that you're experiencing. We also want you to do a research report. So, hand it in when you come back. Reflected on that session. So, we ask you to do focusing on one particular healthcare issue, and you write that when you come back. And you just have to do a presentation. So it's available to all students within the faculty. It's a senior elective for undergraduate students, and we encourage you to go a bit later on in the program, and that is just so that you'll be a bit more confident, add a bit more experience during your program, so that you'll be a little bit so you'll be a little bit more prepared to cope with being thrown in at the deep end, which you will be when you go overseas. So you can take it as an elective, or if you don't have any electives, programs have nominated subjects which you can substitute for FHS. So really everyone that comes into FHS Abroad in some way or another is pretty So we help to work out how to fit it into your program and how everything will work. So it's very important to note that it's not a clinical placement. So we cannot guarantee that you're getting the correct supervision. And most accreditation programs specifically require that your clinical hours are done within Australia. They want to know very structure of the skills that you're learning. So it would be lovely if we could send a supervisor overseas. So therefore, this is just a general experience to sort of complement your CV, not to be a replacement for any clinical. So it's your responsibility to make sure that all of your clinical hours are covered within your program. This can't overlap with any clinical placements that you're going to be going on. So there are costs involved. So the average cost is about $4,000 to $6,000 in total. Think of all of these different things. You've got to pay for your flights and for the there's also smaller fees as well, things like for your vaccinations, insurance, spending money, and if you want to do any extra travel, or if you want to go yourself off bridges in the pool, as people seem to do quite frequently, then you need to cover all that spending money. We do have some scholarships. So the problem with scholarships is that we get money in from external sources and we have to apply for funding, and it's not guaranteed. So the position on scholarships changes from semester to semester, so make sure that you look on the website. We do have scholarships available at the moment for those who want to travel to Vietnam, so it's quite a specific scheme, but if you are remotely considering going to Vietnam, then make sure that you look for that information, because there is money on offer. So we might have some more for next semester, but we cannot guarantee it, and I wish we could, but we just can't. So you need to travel with our partner organisations, so Projects Abroad and Antipodes Abroad, who you'll hear from both of those in a minute. So they're here to help you and to give you the kind of experience that you want. So, when you get in touch with them, we're very happy to help really figure out what it is. So make sure that you discuss everything with them, and of course come and discuss everything with us, because we can pass on what students in the past have experienced in different places. So just to finally say that the students that have just returned from being overseas in December and January are going to be doing their presentations. Quite informal presentations, good insight into actually experience so the good and the bad points. You can ask them all of the questions that you really want to ask, and they're the ones who will actually be able to give you a position from somebody who's just experienced it. So I would say that it's really worth coming to these if you possibly can. Just make an effort to come along. So there's some on Tuesday and some on Thursday in this week in April, second week of April. Both at midday during these common lunch times. So come along with your questions, and you can get to hear about what they've done. These are our contact details, so just email FHS.abroad and look us up on the faculty website. A new website which is up and running now, which has got a lot of information in there about all the placements. So, as I say, I'll shut up now and get on to the interesting part, which is hearing from Lucy and Will. So Lucy's from Antipodeans Abroad.
Thanks, Elaine. Hi guys, my name's Lucy. I work for Antipodeans Abroad, or Antips. I know Antipodeans Abroad is always a bit of a mouthful. So I guess the purpose of today is to give you guys a bit of an understanding about who Antips are as an organisation and what our uni break program is all about. So as an FHS Abroad student, you guys are going to fall into our uni break program. I know that there may well be a couple of you here who have already booked with Antips for our mid-year group. So can I get a show of hands if any of you have already booked with Antips for mid-year? Excellent, that's good. Oh, I need a microphone. Sorry, how do I pin this on? Okay, cool. Okay, fantastic. So I guess to give you a bit of a background about myself, I was a UTS student some years ago now, and I was lucky enough to do a uni break placement with Antips. For me, I was studying business, so it was a generalist placement, and it wasn't organised through UTS. Basically, I joined a team of students from different unis across the country, and I went at the beginning of my second year, and we basically did a bit of, we did some teaching and some construction work. For me, it was an amazing experience. It was fantastic. It was my first time travelling independently. I'd done lots of trips with mum and dad before, but nothing quite as adventurous as heading to Kenya by myself. I couldn't recommend doing something like this more. I think the fact that Sydney Uni have this program up and running is fantastic. As Elaine was saying, it's really one of a kind, and I think the fact that you guys have this opportunity to participate and also have it complement your studies is just an added bonus. Okay, so first and foremost, what is a uni break? They're 4-week placements. You can extend them a little bit more if you decide to go in your summer holidays, but essentially you guys will head off as a team with a group of students from different unis all across the country. So teams will vary between 5 and 15. We never tend to send more than 15. We like to keep our numbers relatively small. And in terms of start dates, you're looking at, you've got the winter break coming up, and you've also got then opportunities to go away over summer, sort of late November and then into January as well. So a uni break placement provides you guys with access to these grassroots communities that as a regular tourist you really just don't come across. So it's a really, really unique cultural immersion experience. I know for me, I've done lots of backpacking since my time in Kenya, but nothing really compared to the 4 weeks that I spent there living and working in this community. It's such a great way to travel. For you guys, the projects are all focused around, I guess, generalist health science projects. So there's a huge variety that you can choose from. We've got even more projects on board for this year, which we're really excited about. But as Elaine said, they're not clinical, so the idea is for you guys to go and learn from the locals. You know, you might not necessarily be shadowing someone who's, you know, a professional in your exact degree that you're studying, but it's about you guys learning, you know, how they work without the resources that we have access to here in Australia. So as I said, you'll be travelling with a team of students, so then it's not going to be just a team of Sydney Uni FHS students, although I know in Cambodia last year that was almost the case. So it'll be a team of students from different unis essentially. And your placement itself is fully supported by our FHS Abroad office, which is based in Sydney. Okay, so why go with ANTIPS? It's a good question. Look, we've been in existence now for the last 18 years. We started as a school-based expedition company, sending groups of school students into the developing world on leadership expeditions. We've since branched out into our uni break program, which is where you guys fit. So we've been doing this for a very long time. You know, for that very reason, we are, I guess, you could say risk management experts. Our office is based in Sydney, so we'll get to meet you guys at least twice before you head off. We run 2 face-to-face pre-departure workshops, which we think is really important for you guys. It's nice for you guys also to get to meet the others who you're going to be spending 4 weeks with in country. The idea is we want to prepare you for life in country as best we can. You will all travel together as an ANTIPS team, so you'll become sort of a little ANTIPS family, which I think is really important because at the end of the day, what you're going to be doing is challenging. You know, it's very different to going on holidays in, you know, Queensland or, you know, even through Europe. Sometimes you're going to be challenged and put outside of your comfort zone. So I think it's really nice that you guys get to travel as a team and as a little ANTIPS family. I think the fact that you do get to travel as a team, therefore, enables you to have a greater impact as well while you're there. So, you know, you're looking at, on average, there's about 12 to 14 students per team. And I think if you guys are all there working together, particularly if you're all coming from a health background, which many of our destinations offer just for health students, you certainly can have, I think, a greater impact in the community while you're there. While you're in country, you're going to be managed by our in-country partners. So they essentially run their own local NGOs and they're responsible on the ground for making sure that you guys are safe and happy. They're on 24-hour backup and support while you're in country, and so are we here in our office in Sydney. We also work with a medical consultant at the TNBC, so you guys unfortunately are going to need some jabs before you head off, some vaccinations, and you can get a discount if you go through the travel and medical vaccination clinic. Okay, so when and where? For ANTIPS, you've got 3 destination choices: Cambodia, India, Nepal. Within that, there's a couple of different locations where you'll be based depending on what your studies are and what project is going to work best for you guys. In terms of the start date, so we're looking at June, July, and then November, December, and January. Guys, if you're looking at the June, July departures, you need to get on board pretty quickly. We've got a huge amount of students already on board, and a lot of the projects are close to being full. So we do put a cap on numbers because we essentially don't want to be sending 40 students in to the community at any one time. You can extend your placement as well beyond the 4 weeks, particularly if you're going in summer. Okay, so cost and inclusions. You're looking at prices starting from 2,690. What does that include? It includes your community project. It includes your personalised pre-departure support and training, your accommodation, your meals, your airport transfers, your orientation, your on-the-ground management and support from our in-country partners, the actual donations into the community, to the organisations where you're working, and I guess the wider community where you're going to be living. And it also covers your 24-hour support in-country and from Australia. So I guess outside of that, you do need to think about flights, travel insurance, and spending money. You can also book your flights through us. We can generally get pretty competitive prices, so it's definitely worth doing a bit of research, but certainly getting some quotes from us, and where possible, we'll be able to match them and beat them if we can. All right, so now we're going to the exciting stuff. So first off, we've got Nepal. Nepal for us is always really popular with FHS students. I mean, as a destination, it's obviously really attractive, but we've got some fantastic projects there as well. There's 3 location bases for Nepal. We're looking at Kathmandu, Pokhara, and Chitwan. In all 3, you're going to be staying with host families. I do think that's another big draw card often for Nepal. You get to stay with a host family, so it's a really cool experience. You're always in pairs, so we're never going to send you to a host family by yourself. There's always at least 2 ANTIPS students per family. Now, in terms of the projects, guys, this is just a snapshot. It's just an example. I can't go through all of them right now, but these are some examples, particularly of centres where the FHS students have worked in the past. The first being BAS, Brahmastani Awareness Society. BAS is much easier. It's essentially a patient shelter. So often in Nepal you have patients who come from quite far away, they don't have a lot of money, and people that are suffering from long-term illnesses require ongoing treatment, but they're not able to be treated within the hospitals. So BAS was set up almost as a shelter. There's a few kids that live there permanently who have physical disabilities, so there's certainly plenty of opportunity for students to participate in some generalist health projects there to help the local health staff, particularly with working with these kids who have physical disabilities, looking at giving them a bit of sort of physical and mental stimulation throughout the day. There's a few hospitals that we work with. There's one in particular that is actually a rehab hospital. So they do have physios working there. They've also got, I think, OTs as well part-time. So certainly it would be a great opportunity for students if you want to be in that more of a clinical sort of environment. There are a couple of other community-based hospitals that we work in. There's a fantastic project. It's a cerebral palsy centre for children. Last year and the year before we've sent I think 3 groups now of students there from FHS Abroad, and they've had a fantastic time. So the Cerebral Palsy Centre, it's a little bit out of the city. There's a bit of travel to get there, but it's certainly a really unique opportunity if students are particularly interested in working with kids with cerebral palsy. There's a new project that we've got which is based in Chitwan. It's a school nursery up to, I think, year 8 roughly, and school for children I guess who are at normal level, but there are also 29 kids there who are deaf. So quite a unique school, and certainly a great opportunity for any of you guys with a health science background to work with these kids who are hearing impaired. The unique thing about Nepal is that you do 3 weeks on placement in whatever project it might be it clinical or at BAS, and then your final week of placement as a team you come together and you guys will run health promotion workshops in the surrounding villages. So we think that's really important. For you guys, it's a really great way for you guys to actually have an impact and I think to help contribute to the health outcomes, the ongoing health outcomes, particularly of the kids growing up in these areas. Okay, so we've got photos here. I think a couple of these photos are from one of the centres for children with disability, and then there's a rehab hospital there. So these are some of the students that we had there away with us last year. This is one of the students we had at Sahara, I believe, which is in Nepal, in Kathmandu, at the rehab hospital. And this is the health promotion week. So I think this is our January 2014 team. They're all FHS students, so they're running their health promotion week in the surrounding villages. Alrighty. Now India, we've got 2 locations. One right up in the north at the base of the Himalayas in Palampur. The next one is completely different. It's southwest India in Goa, which is a beach town essentially. For both of them, it's guest house accommodation. In Goa, it's actually a camp-style environment. You're there with a group of volunteers, not just from Australia, but from around the world as well. If you're going up north into Palampur, there's a few options. There's Karen Hospital. There's a Rotary Club school for mentally challenged children. There's about 40 kids there with varying degrees of disabilities. There's an Ayurvedic clinic, which looks at traditional Indian therapies. So it's quite nice. If anyone wants to do a bit of a combination of projects, you can go and do 1 or 2 afternoons a week at the Ayurvedic clinic and really see the differences between traditional Western medicine and then traditional Indian medicine. There is another school for handicapped children that's actually down in Goa. There's about 200 to 250 kids there. They've got a physical therapy room at the school, and they do have part-time physios and OTs that will come. And like we do in Nepal, your final week of placement, if you're up in Palampur, is a health promotion week. So you actually get to go out into the surrounding tea tree villages, which is really cool. So Palampur is known essentially for these tea tree plantations. It's beautiful. So you guys will actually get to go out into these villages and you'll run health promotion workshops. So this photo there is from one of the health promotion workshops from our November 2013 team. So when we're talking about health promotion, guys, it's really basic. Teaching kids to brush their teeth, wash their hands, really simple nutrition, but things that will hopefully contribute to their health outcomes long term. Okay, so this is at one of the schools. This is the physical therapy room. And these are some of the students that are up in Palampur. So you can see Palampur's pretty spectacular. You literally can see the Himalayas from the guest house where you're staying. It's a pretty cool place to be, removed from kind of the craziness of Mumbai and Delhi. Okay, and Cambodia. So for Cambodia, for the FHS student, we do have 2 locations in Cambodia, but the majority of you guys being FHS students will go to Siem Reap. In Siem Reap, it's a great town, real tourist backpacker hub. If nobody's been to Cambodia before, I highly recommend visiting Siem Reap. It's a really cool city. You'll stay in a guest house with a group of ANTIPS volunteers, so twin share accommodation. There's a few projects. The primary project is at the Military Handicap Development Centre, or MHDC as the students like to call it. Now, this centre was set up to essentially house families who have been involved in the National Cambodian Army and often have long-term disabilities and injuries. The FHS students who have been to this centre over the many, many years now, it's probably 4 or 5 years at least, have done some fantastic work at MHDC. There's a fully functional physiotherapy room there. We'd love that to know that it's being serviced and used regularly. They only unfortunately have physios that come through, you know, on a sporadic sort of basis. So they're really keen to have groups of students like yourselves who come in and who can work with the local health professionals and help at MHDC. There's also a couple of other places that focus more so on working with kids with disabilities. So Grace House is one of them, and Sankum Centre. They're quite unique placements, so we don't just accept anybody to them. We really need to work with the centre. We obviously get your resume, which we do for all the placements, but we want to make sure that you guys will be right for the centre, and the centre would have to be comfortable with your background and your skills to be accepted working at either of them. But certainly health education, again, is something that's really important. In Cambodia, it's really lacking. You've got a population that, there was, I think, 2 million people wiped out only 30 years ago, so there's a big gap there. There's a really young population at the moment. So health education is really lacking, and it's really, really important that it's something that our groups continue to work on, particularly at MHDC. So this is the City Uni group I think it's from June, July last year, working at MHDC. I think there was about 8 physios that we had. So this is the room. It's nothing flashy, but all of this stuff here has been donated by Sydney Uni FHS students. So it's certainly a great project. Okay, so guys, what next? There's an info brief down there. There's an info sheet. Grab one of my business cards. If you've got any questions at all, please feel free to give us a call or send me an email. The next official step, guys, is to actually book your spot. So I strongly recommend, if you're looking at going in the middle of the year particularly, you need to be booking soon. For some destinations, there's only a couple of spots left. So if you've got your heart set on one destination or one project in particular, get in touch as soon as you can, and we'll do our very best to get you on your first choice. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Elaine. Thanks, Lucy. As Elaine says, my name's Will. I work for FHS Abroad, which is the other organisation that you could choose to do FHS Abroad through. And similar to Lucy, I'm just going to give you a really brief overview about how we work and the sort of places that we work and the sort of opportunities open to you guys. First things first, I want to say that it's really a big deal to do something like this. So it is something which you should look quite deeply into. You should ask lots of questions about and make sure that you're doing the right thing for yourselves, because you shouldn't underestimate the experience of going to a country such as one of these we're talking about, to just end up living pretty much as a local would live, or living behind the scenes, if you like, getting to know the country from the inside out, and to actually having a purpose there and a role. It is a big deal. It is, the challenges of day-to-day life aren't hidden from you, but at the same time, it's immensely rewarding and wonderful opportunity as well to get to know the world in a different kind of way. So this is us, Projects Abroad, and I guess overall what we want to do is to give you the opportunity to be on a safe, sustainable, educational and worthwhile type placement, somewhere where you can really get to know the country, really do something useful and really learn a lot as well. We've been doing it since 1992, and during that time it's evolved into an organisation where we have a full-time staff in every country, so there's around about 500 staff across the 30 or so countries that we work in. These guys are responsible for two things. Firstly, for your welfare and making sure that you're a good fit with the local organisation, and whenever you need them, you get advice and guidance, and at the same time to also find local placements which are going to value your input and benefit from your time there as well. So it's a two-way thing. The placements hopefully gain from having well-placed, motivated, enthusiastic and creative people like yourselves, and you benefit from going somewhere where you have the opportunity to, firstly, to settle in and learn, but as time passes, hopefully to spread your wings a little bit and to have a little bit of an impact on the placement, to use your imagination and stuff. So overall, we want you to be supported by our local staff, but not constrained. So you have, like I say, every opportunity to use your imagination and creativity. With FHS Abroad, you're allowed to go to 4 countries. So we work in all 4 of them. In Cambodia, top left, most of the placements are in Phnom Penh, but we do have quite a few now in Siem Reap, where we've been working for 3 or 4 years as well. So a couple of opportunities there. In Nepal, in Kathmandu, but also in a little more rural in Chitwan, which is more sort of semi-tropical. Some placements down there. In Vietnam, up in Hanoi, which is a really cool place if you haven't been there. Fantastic placements there. And in India, way down in the very deep south in the state of Tamil Nadu, mostly around the city of Madurai, which is way off the beaten track. So I guess just a little bit of a points on how we work. Say we have this full-time staff there, so we are operating the countries all year round. So the placements that you go to will have students similar to yourself working all year round. So you'll be part of a chain, I guess. So if you want to see yourself as a bit of a link in a chain, you'll probably take over from a couple of students who've been there for a little while, and then you'll hand over to some other guys. So ideally, what our local staff want to see is that the level of service and the level of resources and provision for the people who are being served by the placement you're at is incrementally rising each year. We're a very international organisation, so the people you meet when you're overseas, you can go on your own or you can go as a group of friends. It's fine, FHS students do all of these things. You'll never be alone in the country you're working in. You'll always find there's a group of students from different parts of Australia, probably from FHS Abroad as well, but also from places like the UK, America, Canada, Denmark, France, Sweden, Germany. It's a very sort of international thing. So the people you're sharing experience with may well be from a totally different part of the world, and going to India and making sense of India when your buddy's a German guy is quite a sort of intercultural experience. So, talk a little bit about the independence and support that we try and give you, that kind of balance between the two. And also, because we're there all year round, we're able to support numerous local organisations. So as an example, in Nepal, we probably support and work alongside about 20 different healthcare settings, from quite large hospitals right down to sort of community-based rehab settings. So it's, I would hope there would be something for everybody, whatever discipline or whatever major you have. I want to talk very briefly about some of the placements, just to give you a bit of a feel for things. This one is in Cambodia, in Phnom Penh. It's called National Baby Centre. It's a residential and daycare home which looks after well over 100 kids of varying disabilities and varying extent of disabilities. A lot of them have ended up there because their parents just aren't able to look after them or give them full parental care, just because it's too much hard work when they've got to go out and work long hours to earn a living. So they'll often spend weeks at a time in the placement and then perhaps spend a bit of time with their parents. It's a really, really worthwhile sort of setting. The FHS students in the past there have got involved in everything from OT and physio to general caring and developing. A lot of the kids will need help feeding, for example, or perhaps you could teach them to self-feed a little bit. You can teach them to a wider range of movements, finer sort of motor skills. So there's a huge variety of roles there, and people tend to get really quite immersed in the place and really get stuck in. So it's a really nice place to be. Before I go on to that, I might just give you another mention. And one of the other placements in Cambodia is a home for kids with disabilities and for kids with HIV who are largely shunned and excluded from mainstream education and care. So it's a charitable centre. A lot of the students who would work there would be involved in caring for the kids with disabilities, so helping improve their day-to-day quality of life. It may well be helping in the school that's on site there, so you might help with organising sports or activities for the kids, for example. It's actually on the edge of the city, and there's quite a large village nearby, which is pretty much just paddy fields and sort of corrugated shacks and things. So the kids from there will come and get their education at the centre. It's probably the only sort of place where they get a bit of attention and a bit of care. So you'll have quite a large number of kids to work with there. But it's also a place where it takes in recently they've started taking in some victims of strokes from the village as well. So we've had physios and OTs out there helping sort of adults, stroke victims with rehabilitation as well. So again, a real sort of variety of placements there in Cambodia. In India, this is just a quick example. It's a similar sort of thing. It's quite a large placement, Amar Seva Sangam. It's a bit of everything. It's a bit of a school. It's a care centre for families with kids with disabilities. It teaches vocational skills such as bookbinding and weaving, things like that. So the kids will go up to perhaps year 10, possibly maybe a little bit younger, but there's a kindy there as well. There's caring for the kids with disabilities. There's getting involved in all the activities there, and you actually live on site at this place. So it's a hugely varied sort of placement, and one which, again, pretty much anybody from any sort of discipline could get involved in. If you have a real focus, often there's sort of opportunity to get a lot of experience as a physio, or to perhaps introduce the idea of OT, for example, which most of these countries are a little bit naive or just don't really understand the profession. So lots of scope to increase knowledge there, and also often to support the parents of these kids as well. You can show them things they can do at home, ways to improve the quality of life and make their life a little bit easier back at home. In Nepal, this particular centre, MSPN, is a centre for kids and their families who are HIV positive, which is a massive problem in Nepal and only growing. It looks after their medication and nutrition and education, and again, there's a huge stigma about HIV in Nepal, so these kids are often excluded from many of the mainstream educational opportunities for them. So you'll work there alongside the local professionals there who are administering ARV medicines. They're helping with the education of the kids. They're helping counselling with the parents, for example. There's 1,000,001 ways to help in there, and whether you find some practical way to help there, or just really get an understanding of the treatment of HIV in a country like Nepal, the kind of, I guess, the realities of having the virus there. It's a really wonderful place. A lot of the kids come from very, very poor backgrounds, and they'll often come in with other conditions as well. It's not uncommon for the kids and the families to be admitted suffering from malnutrition, and often conditions such as clubfoot, which are relatively easily treated at birth, but often left till the kids are 6 or 7, and totally unmanageable until something's done about it, mostly because the families can't get to healthcare, whether it's for the cost or the proximity of it. One of the girls who was there, actually, one of her roles was to take one of the kids to the hospital, to an orthopaedic hospital each week, where he'd get his plaster changed on his clubfoot as it was gradually improving. And she'd be sat in the waiting room, and somebody would bring her out a bowl of warm water and a rock, and her job was to get the plaster off, ready for the physio or the doctor to set a new one on there. So we'll learn a lot about sort of different levels of resources in healthcare systems as well. This one is also in Nepal, just another quick example. It's a home. Malnutrition is a huge problem. It affects quite a large proportion of the population. Some of it's through poverty, some of it's through ignorance. Parents just don't know what to feed their kids. So we work with a lovely centre there where kids coming in with malnutrition, and often their parents as well. The parents aren't starving their kids to make themselves fat. The parents will come in as well and will get care. And you imagine when they come in, it's very, very quiet, very, very weak, and it gradually built up and built up. And at the other end, 6 to 8 weeks later, when they're sort of getting a little bit more like it, the kids are running around a million miles an hour, and just like any other 7 or 8 year old kid. So there's lots of different roles there. We have physios working in there, because often the kids again will come in with various disabilities or conditions. So there's a lot of scope in there. But just if it's a caring role or a nursing type role, or even a nutrition type role, real understanding of a condition really common in the developing world, but obviously not often come across in Australia. And this is one more, which is just to demonstrate there's more of a clinical type setting if you're interested in that. So this is the orthopaedic hospital where that girl would go in the waiting room and crack the plaster off with a rock every week. And again, if you're after a more sort of clinical setting to get involved in, then I've visited this place myself. It's a really inspirational place. There's some amazing things with with people who come in with common conditions to Australia, but in really advanced cases often. Oops. And finally, Vietnam. There are a couple, well, actually, it's quite a range of things in Vietnam. This Zadan school is for kids with hearing impairments or who might be deaf. We've had speech pathology students in here before, working really, really well with the kids and encouraging them with their self-confidence and their ability to form sounds, for example, but also writing notes and manuals, which we've managed to translate into Vietnamese, which their families can then learn from and practice things at home. So that's a really good example of FHS students who've used their initiative and said, what can we leave behind? How can we, actually, not just while we're here, but afterwards, what can happen? So writing sort of notes up for the parents of the kids about exercises they might do at home to improve it. So it's a really wonderful way to sort of make sure that your insight is staying behind. And things like, I mean, even in Vietnam, things like speech pathology and occupational therapy, I don't believe there are any bachelor's courses in that or master's courses in that. So many of the professionals in those fields might be expats or people working for things like AusAid, for example. So often just the insight you've got maybe from 3 years study, for example, and the placements here is a massive step forward for a lot of these placements. It's a really wonderfully run place, but just doesn't have the sort of skills and resources we're used to here. Other placements in Vietnam, there's one sort of children's home, which is attached to a monastery, often similar to the place in Cambodia. Kids are brought there when the parents just find it's impossible to care for them on a full-time basis and sort of throw themselves on the charity of the monks. Many of these kids are able-bodied and all go to school, so there's a bit of a role for helping them in their homework and being a big brother or sister to them. But many of them will have a disability, so they'll need daily care and exercise and work and encouragement in all sorts of areas. Many of them will have delayed development, so as in many things. So it's, again, lots and lots of roles there. We actually we set up a kindy in there because there was nothing but the kids just run around and make sure that the gates were locked and they couldn't get out. So we've actually established a kindy there, and we pay local professional Vietnamese kindy teachers to manage that, and then the students will go in and support those guys and also support in more of a treatment sense as well. Cost-wise, I think the important thing to know is that, well, two things. Firstly, the cost will differ country by country, and that just reflects the cost of us working in those countries. Things will be more expensive in some places than others. But what's included and not included is a key thing. So for us, included is all the placement costs and the way that we'll support the various settings, all your accommodation and meals. Sometimes it's with host families, places like Nepal and India, and places like Cambodia and Vietnam, it's more likely to be in an apartment with all the other students. Your medical and travel insurance is included in the cost here, and all the other things that go with it. So the pre-departure support, having our local staff there, transport around the country, pickups, all these sorts of things are included. The things you need to add on and consider are your flights, of course, any police checks that we'll need from you, visas, which will give you full advice on, vaccinations, which you should consult a professional on, and spending money, which we can give you an idea of as a budget. I guess then just to sum up, we love the placements to be challenging, educational, constructive, and fun, a benefit to all parties. So ideally, the placement benefits from you being there. You've thrown in a lot of energy and imagination and hard work, and you benefit from that, learning about a very different country, learning it from the inside out, and hopefully developing your sort of professional and academic skills as well, and insight and perspectives. So, yeah, so we want to give you that kind of independence, but that support when it's needed. There are heaps and heaps of organisations we support, like I said, around about 20 healthcare settings in Nepal. So the ones I've mentioned really are a tip of the iceberg. They're places where FHS students have gone in the past and all done very well. But as I said right at the beginning, I do encourage you to ask lots and lots of questions and try and work out what the best setting is for you, because it's, like I say, it is a big deal. So give it the credit and then take a little bit of time to make sure you do the right thing for you as well. Plenty of leaflets here at the front when it's all over, but for me, that's all. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, so we do have a few minutes for questions. Ask. Yeah. mean, I can say is that I'm actually from the discipline of and they've all gone into actually been very hands-on placement. Definitely opportunity.
Yeah, there would be.
Yeah, so what you need to do is very early on, as soon as possible, go and talk to your, whoever it is for your discipline, and let them know that you want to go on FHS Abroad. A lot of physios who want to travel during the June-July period. I think that's a block 5 or something. And the people in physio will make sure that all of the people who want to go on FHS Abroad have that block free. That means that you have to do a block which is in January, so you have to have made sure that you've done that one already. So for other disciplines it's different, but you definitely need to go to your course director and make them aware that you want to go on FHS Abroad. Obviously get in touch with me or Charlotte. But you definitely need to make sure that your medical supervisor knows so that they can spread that out. And with different disciplines it's different. So with MRS it might be that you do slightly longer hours during your placements every day, so that which means you've got enough space free and things like this. For everyone it's different, and so therefore you need to make sure that you've really planned much in advance. Yeah, so as the case with a lot of students is that you've only got one space within your whole program to do an elective, but it doesn't quite fit in with when you want to travel and other things going on. Have a life as an FHS student. But what you can do is you can essentially enroll in the unit but without actually being enrolled. So we put you through the program, you're part of the e-learning site, and you do all the assessments as everybody else does, and you travel during the middle. But then we just basically save up your marks, and then when it comes to the semester when you've got your elective, we enroll you in FHS Abroad, and we put through all your marks for you then. So it's almost like you're doing a whole unit reserve, and then you just get through for timing. Some people, they prefer to over-enroll and then under-enroll for different semesters, and you can do that, but you need to get your course director's permission. But it's the case that we try and be as flexible as we possibly can, so that we can sort of help you to fit it into your program. Best for you. No, you have to do the debriefing session when you come back. Yeah, I mean, that as well is a huge task with FHS Abroad. We have people that are on placements for the semester before they travel. and in which case we do have an online program which you can do to substitute the pre-departure workshops. So you have to get permission to be able to do that, but you can. And the same with the workshop when you come back. So there are exercises that we sort of get you to do to sort of substitute that face-to-face if you are on clinical placement. But yeah, I mean, as I say, if the nature of the disciplines that we have in FHS means that, you know, everyone's got different concerns and things that they have to do with their program. So we try as best as we can to fit in around this, and we're developing the sort of online aspect so that we don't limit anyone. It's the same with doing a presentation. So if you're out on placement, you don't have to do a presentation when you return because you're not going to be on campus in other ways.
As of the 1st of January. There are a few other requirements. It's not a grant you have to pay back. It basically goes on. It will significantly. I think that education is too much. So it's, guys, absolutely, it's worth investing in. Or are they able to apply?
Yeah, no, that's right. So that we just. Right, yeah. Oh, yeah. So, are very easy to find.